Well, good morning or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. Excited to be having another one of our Domotz Vendor Partner Series webinars. Along with me, I got Riley Chase here from HostiFi. We're going to give it about another 30, 40 seconds while people join in. I see there's still quite a few people, attendees coming in. But then we will get started talking about how we're going to build out a better solution for Ubiquiti-based systems using Domotz and HostiFi. So, Riley, while we're waiting, I got to ask you, how's the weather in your area? Where are you coming from, by the way? Tell everybody.
I'm here in sunny Michigan, and it's nice though. It's starting to the weather's starting to get good here. It's springtime, and we're all happy that there's no longer snow on the ground. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, mid 50s and it's sunny.
totally appreciate that. Actually, the weather is turning really nice here in Salt Lake City as well. So it's good. Okay, well, let's get started here. Let me go to this next slide. As we always like to do, this is a live webinar. We want people to ask questions. We've got a team of people standing by, both from the Domotz side as well as the HostiFi side. Take advantage of the GoToWebinar control panel here. Type your questions there. Of course, if you do have more technical questions or you want to get more information, whether it's sales or technical support related, by all means, you can reach out to sales@domotz.com. HostiFi, you can reach out to support@hostify.com as well. So that's another means of getting through this. We have got a lot of topics today that we're going to cover. A lot of this is built around Ubiquiti. We're of course going to be talking about Domotz as we started looking at the number of attendees that are joining us today. We realize that there's a lot of people from HostiFi that may not be as familiar with Domotz, and vice versa. There's a lot of Domotz people that may not be familiar with what the HostiFi team is doing. So we'll cover both Domotz and HostiFi in today's topics too. One thing that you're going to see that Riley has done a really good job with is really finding a way to simplify UniFi and the Ubiquiti architecture. As we've reached out to, or I should say, as a lot of the attendees have reached out to us, a lot of people are very excited because we found that a lot of people use Ubiquiti and they need an easier way to manage it. So Riley's going to talk a lot about what they're doing. Rather than calling it reliability, I called it Rileyability. Some of the stuff that the team there has done in their approach to testing firmware, validating what software and firmware versions are available on Ubiquiti, I think are pretty cool and unique. And as a service provider, as an integrator, I think you guys are going to find it really powerful. And then, of course, we'll get to some Q&A. That being said, who's with us today? So we've got Riley Chase, founder and CEO from HostiFi. Riley, I'm going to use this time as an opportunity for you to introduce yourself, okay? Tell us a little bit about where you're coming from, and if you can, tell us how you got started with HostiFi.
Thanks. Yeah. So the idea for HostiFi came from my own IT service business, and I was installing UniFi equipment for my customers, and I didn't like the idea of having a cloud key for every customer. That's another server that I'd have to manage and update, and it's another expense too, another $200 every time. When there was an alternative, you could install the software on your own server, and so I had the idea, this is in 2016 or so, to install UniFi on a Linux server in the cloud, and then connect all my customers back to one server. And at that time, there were very limited resources on like how to do something like that, as far as how to install it, how to keep it updated, how to install an SSL certificate, and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of started becoming an expert at that, just doing it on my own, figuring it out one step at a time. And after a while, I had my controller running with all my customers connected back to it. And then I had a couple of friends who also had IT service businesses, and they're running UniFi controllers. And so I helped them move off of all kinds of different stuff, whether it's cloud keys or laptop installs, and get it all into one centralized server. And so after a while, I started managing not just my own controller, but a few friends who were fellow IT business owners. And then it was in 2018, I kind of had this idea like, hey, maybe I could spin this off into its own product, and I could maybe have, I think maybe I could find 10 people that would want this. And that was kind of my goal when I set out. I was like, if I could find 10 people that I could do this for, it would kind of pay for itself and it'd be kind of a fun project. And so, yeah, fast forward to today, we have 1,500 servers that we're managing, over 100,000 Ubiquiti devices connected. And yeah, I had no idea when I launched it that it was going to grow that fast. But yeah, it turned out it's something people really wanted, and it's because we're solving two key problems with Ubiquiti stuff, which is the management of the controller, the updates, stuff like that, which they don't provide, and support, which they've been known for having really bad support, and there's no way to pay to get better support, even though a lot of you guys, you're running, important businesses, you'd be happy to pay a lot of money to get good support from Ubiquiti, but it's just not something they even offer. So with our service, we provide that level of support, and it's all just packaged into like one monthly price of like $49 per month for up to 500 devices. And with that, we do the updates, we take care of anything that goes wrong with the controller, and we provide support via email, live chat. You can schedule meetings with us. Vinny's in chat today. He'll be helping with questions, and you can also go to our website to schedule a meeting with him at any time if you have questions too.
Perfect, perfect. So Riley, I'm fascinated by the fact that so many businesses that have formed in this industry, whether it's the MSP, the managed service provider space, or even the integration business, has formed out of people that have owned a business that had a problem that they were trying to solve, and it's exactly what you did. I look forward to talking more about that and kind of getting into the details of what you guys do that makes it unique. As always, I have my partner in crime here, Giancarlo. He's in the background answering questions with us, and at the end, I'm going to bring Giancarlo in to help us mitigate. I shouldn't say mitigate, but manage some of the questions that are coming in, and we'll address those. So that being said, Riley, and before we get into the HostiFi side, I always like to kind of frame up, Domotes and what Domotes is doing. When I look at some of the problems that are out there, we see a couple things. First and foremost, a lot of people know Domotes as a network management solution, which is very true. We do a very good job of taking an agnostic approach to all of the network devices out there. Of course, we're going to be focused a lot on Ubiquiti today, but whether it's Cisco or HP or Juniper, or on the residential side, you may have even down to Luxol, Netgear, things of that nature. We're managing those devices all the same and in a very agnostic way, as I said. But what service providers and integrators are dealing with more and more today is that of asset management. How do you deal with all of these devices out there? How do you take an inventory of what's out there? How do you make sure that these assets are protected, understood, and well documented? Domotz actually really does a good job of that, especially when we talk about our classifications. Another problem that has just come to the forefront, especially in the last few years, has been security, that of cybersecurity. It's about awareness of what's on the network, and Domotz does a really good job with that. How do we do that? Well, it's by meeting some key value propositions on all three of these items. One is discovering classifications of every device that's on the network, but it's also about proactive monitoring and alerting. So once you've discovered these devices and knowing that you want to manage them, how do you then take and set alerts on those so that way you know what's going on in the network before your customers do? Of course, part of that is when something does go wrong, being able to securely connect to that network, being able to power cycle devices that are on a PDU, being able to remotely connect into those devices, whether it's using something like VPN on demand that we offer, or just a direct connection to that device so you can then manage it appropriately. We have all that available. Ultimately, Domotz is about building a better system for you, making you more efficient, helping you run your company more efficiently, eliminating truck rolls, getting problems resolved faster. In our minds, it's about building customer loyalty. And I think everything that you see today from Domotz really will show how you do that. What's even more exciting is when we tie that in with Riley and HostiFi and what we're trying to do here together, it really is that 1 + 1 = 3 type of thing. So I'm super excited to be talking about this today, especially since we have so many people that are familiar with Domotz and Ubiquiti as well. Insert Domotz here. This is my opportunity to give you guys a quick demo. I am not going to spend a ton of time on this by any means because a lot of you are already aware of what Domotz looks like. Domotz fundamentally is a NOC. It's a network operations center type of view. It's a multi-tenant view. There's three major portions that make up the Domotz ecosystem. You of course have the cloud-based system here. You also then have the agent. An agent is a single agent. It's a piece of software that resides on the network that you're monitoring or networks that you're monitoring. And then of course there's this desktop application that we're showing. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time. If you guys are familiar, we do demos every week or every other week. We've got recorded demos on our website, so I would invite any of those of you that are not familiar with Domotz to visit our webinars page and see some of this. Some key things that I want to point out. First of all, when a Domotz agent gets on the network, it's all about discovery and classification. How can we tell you what types of devices that you have on your house or in your environment? This is my house here that we're looking at. Here you can see we can do different things like capturing snapshots from cameras, helping you get an understanding of how these devices are behaving on the network, what's their performance in the network, how are they connected. Ultimately, what we're doing is building out a network topology of these systems, so you can really get an idea of where things are going. Now, in my house, let's see, I have wireless Ruckus systems here. So within Ruckus, I can do things, and you're going to see how with Riley, some of these things happen as well as Ubiquiti, but we can see all the different clients that are connected to these types of systems. So it's really a powerful tool that Domotz has here. Of course, when it comes to proactive alerting and monitoring, you can set alerts on all these systems. You can also generate tickets into all these systems. So if you have a PSA tool of your choice and you want to know when a device goes online or offline, being able to create a ticket automatically is something that Domotz does for you. We integrate with messaging systems, things like Slack, Microsoft Teams. Telegram is a new one that we released recently. If you're more into automation, you can do things like APIs and do webhooks, as we call it, to automate processes. So there's a lot of power within Domotz. And of course, the one last thing I'm going to say as it relates to Domotz here, being able to get in and manage all of the devices that you have throughout all your networks in one single dashboard, we find very powerful. Being able to take and replicate sites from one site to another, setting alerts, setting credentials across all these, very, very powerful tool. A lot going on within Domotz. I'm not going to spend any more time on the Domotz side. What I am going to do is get back to our presentation here and focus on what it is we're doing with Ubiquiti, so that way we can better understand what Riley and HostiFi does. First of all, I want to say, if you're dealing with Domotz, if you have Domotz and you want to work with Ubiquiti and have us deal with the UniFi controller, our resources here at help.domotz.com is very powerful. Okay, get on that, search for Ubiquiti, take advantage of the Ubiquiti UniFi integration. Okay, and with that, you're going to see a nice help page that tells you exactly how to do all of this integration with all of the Ubiquiti devices. Nice and simple there. A couple of the things that you're going to see that's unique with respect to Ubiquiti. First of all, you're going to have access to all of the Ubiquiti devices that are on the network. I would show you this live, but none of the sites that I have Ubiquiti in it. And so therefore, we took a couple screenshots from our labs that we have. But you'll notice in this case, we have a Ubiquiti UniFi system hosted on a QNAP NAS drive, because you can do that in this case. And we show all that information as it relates to UniFi. So what can we see? Well, when you're looking at the different Ubiquiti devices, whether it's the WAPs or the other switches, things that are on there, you're going to see things like firmware, serial numbers. We're going to monitor the online offline status. You're going to be able to go in and set sensors through simple network management protocol. You're going to be able to look at whether the services running on these devices are actually active and running, and you can alert on these things as well. We're going to be able to show you the performance of the system, CPU utilization, memory consumption, and bandwidth that's happening on the system. So all of these are the types of details that we show within Ubiquiti. It's the same thing that we show, as I said before, from an agnostic point of view on things like Cisco Meraki, things like access networks, other systems that are wireless systems that are out there. But we'll show you radio status. We'll show you signal strength indicators, but from both from the WAP's point of view, but also the end device point of view. We'll look at things like noise floors. So all very powerful tools when it comes to diagnosing the behavior of the system that's out there. And if you're ever trying to troubleshoot, whether it's a large environment with multiple WAPs that are out there, or it's a single environment, a single WAP-based environment, very, very useful tool for you as a service provider to know how the endpoints are behaving and what you should do to improve the system. This is where we get to the meat and potatoes here, right? We're really talking about how Domotes can take advantage of Ubiquiti's UniFi system. And when it's hosted in a cloud-based environment, we also can look at that. Here we take one snapshot where we're pointing to HostiFi, right? And we can see that we're able to query the Ubiquiti system and get all of those details that we've just showed into the Domotes environment. Now, with that being said, it's time to rally with our buddy Riley here. Riley, I am going to take this and make you presenter so that when you're ready to present something here, you can. And
Hear me? I had to switch my microphone.
Well, you should be good to go now, sir.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for
Can you hear me?
a little bit of time. Yeah, I can hear you just good. I think everybody can hear you.
Okay, good. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So, so I'm really excited to talk with Domotz today because this is a problem that we've been trying to solve for our customers for a long time, is how to get better alerts out of UniFi. And before Domotz, there wasn't a good solution. We did come up with several kind of hacks, which I'll talk about. Built into UniFi, I have a controller here. You have all these alerts that you can enable, and you can either get an event, an alert, an email, or a push notification. And so typically, as a service provider, you want the email. The event and the alerts would just be stored here, and the push would go to your phone if you had that. But as a service provider, you want an email. And so you had all these email alerts, but the problem with the email alerts that were built into UniFi was the templates were not customizable. And so as you can see here, this was like, what a connected switch message alert would look like. And in the subject line, it just says switch connected. It doesn't tell you, it tells you the controller name. It says switch connected, but it doesn't tell you what site, which switch it was. And so you'd have to open every single email to figure out, okay, this was this switch, it's at this site. And so that's a problem, having to open every email. And then the other problem is like he was saying, Domotz can trigger a ticket inside of a PSA system. So it'd be much better if you see a ticket open for a switch and then you see, oh, it's already reconnected. So it disconnected, it reconnected, the ticket's there, and you can close the ticket. With emails, you're looking at having to look through all your emails and, kind of mark off, oh, this one already reconnected or whatever. So it wasn't very helpful. And then people wanted better integrations. They wanted to be able to get a Slack notification, for example, or they wanted to get an SMS notification. And that just wasn't something that was available built into UniFi. You would have to figure out some kind of integration to be able to do that. And so we wrote these very complicated guides a while back, where you could use a third-party mail parsing service, which was an additional cost. You would get this mail parsing service. You'd have to write all these regular expressions to extract the stuff out of the emails, reformat it how you want, and then you could send an email out. But so I'm just showing this is just kind of what we went through before Domotz, and the pain point is it's definitely there because we've spent all this time and working through making these complicated guides and just to solve this problem where how could we get a Slack alert or an SMS alert. And so that's kind of what we were doing before we found out about Domotz. Now we just recommend Domotz to everybody. And I was just taking a look at their integrations page. It's really cool to see all the stuff they integrate with.
What you're talking about with setting up alerts and setting all that configuration, those were things that you were having to do for each of your customers on an individual basis, or they had to do on their own. Is that correct?
That's correct. They would have to do this on their own, and we tried to help by creating these guides. But like I said, it was very complicated. So you would have to write, it's you'd have to almost be a programmer because you're writing regular expressions to extract stuff out of emails with a third-party service, and then you'd have to write an API hook into Slack. And so it was in depth. It was complicated. You're pretty much a programmer if you did this. But for some of our customers that were large integrators, they just had so many sites and so many alerts, and they had to find a way to solve this problem. And there wasn't a solution like Domotes that I knew about anyways. As far as I know, Domotes is the best solution for this. And so yeah, and now we just recommend Domotes. And yeah, going back to this integrations page, it's awesome how many things you can do. You can take an alert and do, and set it off anywhere.
I'm gonna totally quote you on the whole that Domotes is the best thing out there. I'm gonna copy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we recommend it all the time now since we discovered you guys, and yeah, that's why I'm glad we're doing this call. And it takes a headache away from us too, because if you guys didn't exist, what would end up happening is we keep getting so many requests for this that I would have to end up building a whole nother product for it, which is not something I actually want to do. I'd much rather just focus on what we're doing and have you guys do that. So.
Well, and you're doing an awesome job, right? Hosting a lot of the Ubiquiti UniFi services for your clients.
Yeah.
One of the things you and I talked about as it relates to these alerts is, Ubiquiti has done some interesting things with respect to UniFi and how they do alerts and how they manage things. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What's the challenge there that if somebody's trying to host their own UniFi platform, what's the challenge that they have, especially when they're dealing with multiple customers?
Yeah, so with dealing with multiple customers, having a central server like HostiFi, it definitely helps a lot because you're able to have all your customers in, let me take a look here at the sites. They changed it in this new version, but you can have all your customers connecting back to one server. So you can see here, let me switch between a couple different sites. This is my house and this is a friend's house. And so I can switch from different customers. I can control the devices. I can do firmware updates and all this stuff. But one thing it's not good about is the alerts. And also you touched on asset management. So that was kind of an important topic this month in particular. In March, this month of 2021, Ubiquiti made a number of their older access points, the UAP, like the original access point models, end of life. And so a lot of our customers were kind of scrambling to figure out, if you have this is just a small controller because just my friends and family, but some of our customers have hundreds of their customers in one controller, or 50, 100, whatever, a lot of customers in one controller, and they're trying to figure out which customers still have these old end-of-life devices that we need to update. Yeah. And there's no good way to do that in UniFi. As you can see, you got to click into each site to be able to see the devices. There used to be a sites overview tab, which they actually just recently removed in this new version that I'm looking at here, but you couldn't see in one place all your devices and what version they are, or like what model or what firmware version. And so yeah, that's another really important part of what you guys do.
Well, so you're touching on a key point and you made 2 points that I want to bring up, but this notion of multi-tenancy, right? Being able to understand the service providers, that 99% of your customers likely are dealing with multiple networks that are independent of each other, but they need to manage them. And you made a really good point. I mean, going through the UniFi system to be able to say, okay, how do I account for all of these? How do I manage them? Maybe they have a documentation system, but why not take advantage of a tool like Domotz, which can show you all of these devices in one dashboard, but then also through the manage interface, right, our global manage interface, be able to search for specific model numbers and see exactly which customers have that, and then know the version numbers, right? It's just powerful.
Super powerful. And that's another thing that we run into a lot is we get that support request, how can I find out which devices are on this firmware version or which devices are on this model? And so our answer is before we found out about Domotz, Domotz is one option, or you'd have to hire a developer and they can write some API queries. It's not that hard if you're a developer to figure out how to do that. But I mean, if you're not a developer, hiring a developer is expensive compared to buying a product like Domotz. So in long term, you hire a developer, that's just a one-off solution, but you get Domotz. And what's great about you guys too is we have multi-tenancy across all the UniFi networks, which is super cool. But a lot of our customers are in mixed environments, particularly with UniFi. They make really great switches and access points, but a lot of our customers don't use their router because it's pretty limited on the feature set. So it's not uncommon to see a Meraki at the head of the network with the Ubiquiti access points and switches, and then you've got 2 different cloud dashboards and 2 different places to look stuff up. And so with Domotz, you can have all your different vendors in one place, which is really cool too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with you. I have to agree with that because I've got this Domotz logo in my background here. But yes, it's a true statement, right? I mean, these
Yeah,
integrators are integrators because of the fact that they're taking multiple systems that are out there and putting them together to build a best in breed or a best in class
that's
type
right.
of environment for their customers. And sometimes Ubiquiti meets the needs, sometimes Cisco does, right? So
That's right.
you're exactly right. Hey, one thing you touched on, which I think is a really important aspect of what you guys are doing, and you mentioned earlier that Ubiquiti just released a new version of whether it was a firmware or UniFi, and
Yeah, we're
it
looking at
changed
it right
things,
here, actually.
right? Talk
Yeah.
to
So
me
this was
about
just
that.
a few days ago. So, as last time I talked to you, we were talking about, that's why I have two different controllers up here. This is what it used to look like. You had all these different alerts you could enable, and you can see you have client events, hotspot events. There's all kinds of stuff that you can enable alerts on. And then within the last few days, which we haven't pushed this out to our customers yet because it's still going through our testing process. Actually, yeah, we're skipping this one because it's got some bugs, but anyways, so under advanced features here, this is what the new version looks like. Actually, under system settings, alerts, you can see there's only like 15 alerts now. So if I open up advanced here, there's like 15 different alerts you can enable, and these are you can either get email or push notifications, and so that's it. There's like 15 alerts, and you can see there were like dozens of alerts here in the previous version. In the new version, there's only a few key alerts, and I actually think this is a good thing. I like to see Ubiquiti focusing on, what their core solution is, and I would like to see, obviously a solution like Domotes is going to do a better job at this. They weren't really doing a good job anyways, and rather than creating a whole templating engine and trying to get into all the advanced features of alerting and monitoring, just have a third party do it better and allow that, API access integration and stuff.
So a couple things here that happened that I think it's worthwhile noting why HostiFi is such a valuable service for service providers and integrators. And I'm gonna put my HostiFi hat on here for a minute and speak to this. But what you're talking about here is validation. You mentioned you guys are validating this software. I assume you're doing that before you end up pushing updates to the systems that you're monitoring and implementing for your customers, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So every time a new release of UniFi comes out, we do extensive testing, and so I have an entire like support article about our processes and everything. But we have customers that opt in, they want to receive it early, and so we're able to test across lots of different environments. And so when we test it, if we find there's any kind of bugs or anything like that, we're gonna skip that release and not roll it out to our customers. We've done that many times in the past. And the same thing with firmware versions. If we find a bug in a firmware version, we're going to make a recommendation to our customers: don't upgrade to this version, stay on this version. And so
Yep.
if you weren't using HostiFi, you could be spending hours every time a firmware update comes out or every time a controller release comes out. If you're doing your due diligence, you're going to be spending hours on the forums, reading all the comments, testing in your own lab environment. And so that's one of our biggest values is doing that testing for you and making sure that you're always having a good experience with UniFi, even when they push out a bad firmware update, it doesn't hit your server because we're in the middle, testing it out. And there's been
Yeah,
times that they've pushed out some bad ones, so we've
yeah.
saved our
So
customers a lot of time.
I've seen LinkedIn posts from you where you made statements like, don't take this release, right? And what's amazing is that you have this like huge following of people that like are so appreciative of the fact that you guys are off doing this and bringing awareness to that. So I think, I mean, the service that you're offering to service providers and integrators alike, right? And the way that your business model is, I think it's just a super valuable for these guys, and it's almost invaluable, right? I mean, it's just, you need this. If you're not leveraging HostiFi for this, and you're using Ubiquiti, you're still spending the money to deal with the hosting, the monitoring it,
Mhm.
trying to figure out all the alerts on it. So yeah, uh, super kudos to you guys for doing that. Um, talk to me a little bit about the scalability and what you guys do for scaling your clients. Like so somebody signs up with your service, maybe they go with the basic plan, right? They start with one or two clients there. How does it scale from there? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so like most of our customers, they sign up for the $49 per month plan or the $4.99 per year plan, and it's so generous that they never outgrow it because it's up to 500 unified devices. But we do have some really large companies using our service as well that are in the thousands of device, maybe even tens of thousands of device range. I haven't checked in a while, but typically, UniFi has kind of its limits where no matter how much hardware we throw at it, we can't seem to get it past 1,000 or 2,000 devices. So usually for the best reliability, we end up splitting into multiple servers. And then it becomes even more important, like you're talking about documentation, knowing which device is on which controller. In a control panel like Domotes, you could go and you're looking at the device and then you've got your controller URL right next to the device. So you'll be able to tell which device is on which controller. And so if you're managing things at a really large scale, definitely talk to us. We worked with Fortune 500 companies, banks, hospitals, government agencies, some really big installations that are out there. And we'll be happy to give you pointers, even if you don't end up using HostiFi, on managing this at scale. We've written a lot of articles about some of the challenges of scaling it and some of the solutions that we've found, including like tweaking the Mongo database and Java. And, we've gotten deep into, keeping these things running reliably. And so, yeah, we've got 1,500 servers we're managing and over 100,000 devices connected. So, we're doing it at a pretty big scale. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, actually, to the Domotes side of things, right? I kind of showed some screenshots about how easy it is to point each individual Domotes agent to the appropriate HostiFi server out there. So that's one thing that makes it really nice and simple. Oh, here you go. Yeah, you got yours.
Yeah, this is at my home here, and this is my personal server, which, by the way, you can customize your URL. If you are a HostiFi customer, you can use your own domain name like that, so it's fully white labeled. And yeah, this is my home network. I have some UniFi cameras and UniFi wireless access points, and yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah, what are some of the things from a Domotes perspective? Like when you talk to people about, okay, so now you've got your customers that you're hosting their UniFi platform. When you point out Domotes, do you have any like concepts, ideas, thoughts, things that they really should and shouldn't do, recommendations? What do you do there typically? But from an alert point of view.
Usually when we're recommending Domotes, it's because the customer's coming to us and they're looking for, how can I customize this email template? Why is the site name not in the subject and stuff like that? Or how can I integrate UniFi with my RMM or PSA tool? And so that's really when we recommend Domotes is, and you guys have been doing a lot of webinars with Synchro, and some of our, Synchro is one of the most popular ones, I think, with our customers. And I think that's really good integration stuff that, that's where we bring up Domotes, and that's really useful.
Okay, makes sense. I want to change subjects slightly on this. We've got about 10 minutes left before we get to the Q&A side, but one of the things that I think is really, really important nowadays has to do with security, right? Everybody's concerned about that. Domotes, from our perspective, we're bringing awareness to the service provider as to what's on the network. We classify that device that gets on the network. What's your take and opinion, or how does HostiFi deal with security when it comes to the UniFi platform and what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before I started HostiFi, I actually used to work as a security analyst, and so security is something I'm passionate about. I've actually submitted stuff to Ubiquiti on security issues before in their HackerOne program, and stuff like that. And so like what we're doing here internally as far as security is two-factor authentication is a big one for us. So we have guides on how our customers can set up two-factor authentication with HostiFi or with any server actually that's not HostiFi, but with any Ubiquiti UniFi controller. We have a video here and instructions. And when we're logging into our customer servers, first, we don't have any like skeleton key admin accounts, so we don't have any shared passwords or anything like that. We use 1Password as a password manager, and when we log in, we use a different password every time. We also have 2FA on our servers. So just as an example here, if I were to connect to this server, it would push an alert to my phone. You see auto pushing login request to phone. So I actually have to prove it on my phone. That's using Duo. And so we have a lot of cool security things that we're doing here because we've spent a lot of time thinking about this that probably most people wouldn't be doing if they're hosting this on their own. Additionally, when a security vulnerability comes out, for example, there was like there was a bug in sudo CVE where you could escalate to root or something like that. I did a video on how we patched 1,426 UniFi controllers for the CVE right when it came out, and so that's something that we're constantly listening and to our customers and stuff, and usually someone's telling us about the security vulnerability before we even hear about it, but we're always out there in the community and stuff. And so when a vulnerability comes up, whether it's on something in Linux or something in UniFi, we're able to patch it really quickly, and then other than that, just best practice security stuff.
So that's perfect. I didn't realize you were a security analyst before, so that explains a lot and why you put thought into this. One of the things that you said there, which I really like to iterate this to all of the Domotes customers that are out there anytime I talk to them. We're a cloud-based service. There's some big advantages of being a cloud-based service, just like you guys are fundamentally, right? Hosting in the cloud. And it has to do with security, right? If a vulnerability is exposed, and look, vulnerabilities will get exposed over time on legacy versions of software. The fact that you can patch or update these systems essentially in real time and immediately across thousands of servers, like you were talking about, is a huge advantage of being a cloud-based system. I mean, if you're using just a cloud key on Ubiquiti and it's plugged into every individual network that's out there, that's a heck of a lot of work for you to go in and push to each individual account, whether you VPN into it or however you do it. It's just problematic. If you're hosting your own servers, even if it's on site, right, or an on-premise solution, you just have to deal with patch management of all of those things. So cloud-based systems it's just the way the world is going, and over the next decade you're going to see this happening more and more. So I applaud you for that. So I'm glad you talked about that. Not to mention it also helps with the scalability side of things, right? If you need to deploy a system, it's a matter of just creating a new account on that cloud, right, or in your environment. So big advantages there to cloud systems. One thing I want to talk about as well, right? And again, slight derivation from at least the security side, but it has to do with support. You mentioned at the very beginning, and I think anybody that's on this webinar right now who's familiar with Ubiquiti knows the fact that Ubiquiti, I don't even know that they know the word support, right? It's all just, it's all on forums, it's all from fellow users that are out there. I'm curious from a HostiFi perspective, right? How you end up helping support these. How do people get a hold of you, right? How do you manage these, hundreds, if not thousands of customers that you deal with?
Yeah, so we have a dedicated support team. Vinny, he's in here in the live chat. He does demos with our customers. So if there's anything that you wanted to like jump on a screen share, you want to schedule a time, you'd book a demo with Vinny. And then we have Safwan and Seth. And Safwan used to work for Ubiquiti. He was my first hire actually. And he's here in our live chat answering phone calls all day, doing email support. And you can see here on our live chat agent, this is, we don't make this up. We don't have control to change this. This is based on our actual response times, and it's under 5 minutes, which is something I'm really happy about. And yeah, so unlike Ubiquiti that, tries to remove themselves as much as possible from doing any of the support work, it's a unique selling point for our business where I'm going to continue investing in our support team as we grow. I just hired another guy, Saf, who's a friend of Safwan's, to help as well. And Vinny, he's been with us a few months now. So, but yeah, it's something I'm going to continue investing in. Is the opposite of what Ubiquiti is doing. I'm putting all of our resources into support and providing a really good experience where you can reach us via phone, email, and live chat, because these are people's networks. These are really important. These are really important networks. Hospitals, banks, governments using our service, and they need someone there if something goes wrong. And it's a big selling point for our service. It's a real peace of mind.
Yeah. You guys are a very lean, very agile operation. I'd say similar to Domotes. It's one of the things that from Giancarlo's and my point of view that attracts us to HostiFi, and I think that I'm just very appreciative of that fact. All right, I know what you guys are dealing with. One thing I will say, and this is probably more of a comment to all of our listeners about you, Riley, is that um, just like you're showing on the support here, right? Less than 5-minute response time. You guys are very transparent about how you work and how you operate, and I think that that's going to be a relief and a pleasure for anybody that signs up with HostiFi service. They're going to love that because you're going to be straightforward and upfront with them, and it's great. It's the way a business should be run. So kudos
Thanks.
to you on that.
Thank you.
You know, I just now looked at the questions that are out there, and we have a lot of questions that are coming in. It looks like some to Domotes,
Oh, cool.
some to HostiFi. Why don't we do this? Why don't we cut ourselves a little bit short so we can actually get to the meat and potatoes and understand what people are asking. Giancarlo, I'd invite you to open up your webcam if you want and join us and tell us what types of questions are coming in here.
Hi, JB. Hi, Riley. Thanks for the very nice presentation about both Domotz and HostiFi. It's from my point of view, you know how I was looking at this webinar. It's very important to have this type of company working better together now. And you know, we are doing we are spending a lot of effort now. We're putting a lot of effort in integration with the hardware in general and with cloud solutions like HostiFi. So very important. We had a lot of questions. I need to be probably look at some of them. We have addressed many of the questions that we received so far. However, I've done some. I took notes of some of them. So there is a question. First of all, there is a question about Domotz. A question for Domotz for you, JB. Then it's more a question about how you see Domotz. It's coming from Rick, and he's asking, would Domotz be a replacement for Ubiquiti UNMS? Now their monitoring solution.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You know, one of the things I'll say about Domotz, and I alluded to this at the very beginning, Giancarlo, and you and I have been on many calls about this. When you're dealing with Cisco, when you're dealing with Ubiquiti and their network management system, it makes a very big assumption that you are living in their ecosystem, right? You're living in their environment only. And for service providers, for commercial integrators, for residential integrators, for video security installers, all of these markets that Domotz plays in, what we have found is it's very rare that an integrator or a service provider will be dealing with only one type of network system. And Riley even pointed this out at the very beginning, right? A lot of his customers will deal with the Ubiquiti WAPs because they're affordable, they're reliable, they work, but they don't have as good of a firewall system. They don't have as good of a router, or they may not have the needs of the network managed switch. So you're dealing with these different systems. I believe, and I feel, and this is just you know, my fundamental thoughts on this, a more agnostic platform like Domotz really provides you with a tool that gives you a common interface, a common dashboard for managing the different types of manufacturer-based systems that are out there. I will say this, Domotz will never replace the dedicated management system for a given device. Right? It would take too many resources to do that. But what we do provide you with is a monitoring and alerting system that can get into each one of these management systems in a very secure way if you need to go to that deeper level. So that's my thought on that. Hopefully that addresses that question. You know, Riley, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that or you want to make a comment towards that, but that's my feelings.
Yeah, no, definitely agree on that. Most environments are mixed environments, and it works out better that way. And the only other thing I was going to add is Domotz can really be a superpower too when you don't, you know, sometimes people don't always want to set up a VPN and stuff. And I really like that you guys can kind of proxy traffic into the network through the agent. So that can kind of be its own VPN, or you can just pop open a web interface to log into a device and it's all cloud-based through Domotz. Really cool. That's something that even UniFi doesn't do. So within UniFi, you can SSH into your devices. Normally, you would control them through the controller, but in the example of the UISP controller, there are some devices which have web interfaces, and you have to make changes to those. And UISP itself is really just a monitoring tool, kind of like Domotz. You can make some changes to the devices, you can't change everything. But with Domotz, you can hop into the web management of the device from the Domotz agent, and that's something that you can't do with UISP. So there's a lot of advantages, but yeah, definitely vendor agnostic. A lot of the networks are mixed, and it makes a lot of sense to have a separate tool.
Yeah, good question. What's next?
Thanks, Riley, for addressing that. I will stick with you with the next question, and this is from Valentin, but other people has asked a very similar question. And the question is, what are the key advantages of using HostiFi instead of other UniFi-based software as a service solution like Qbox, Controlify C, and other?
Yeah, so just ask about support. We were kind of the first one to do this. When I started this, nobody else was doing it. Since then, there's dozens of people that started doing it. Most of them are software engineers, and they're not familiar with MSPs. They're not familiar with, they never worked as a network engineer before. So it's really about, yes, there's going to be people that are going to pop up. They're going to say they can do it cheaper, but look into who's running these services, and you'll find that none of them are MSPs or network engineers. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, Riley, I would add to that. And again, this is more from my experience based on what I've seen out on the forums, what I've seen on the social media platforms, and it kind of gets to the transparency aspect that I talked about before. There's this element by being transparent about what you guys are doing, what Ubiquiti is doing from your testing point of view. There's this element of trust that gets built by having that. And what I see you guys doing with the testing and the validation, and then letting people know, it's like, hey, don't take this one because here's the 4 bugs you're going to run into, or the 4 issues. I think that's really, really important. In fact, what you just showed on the UniFi stuff today about what they've changed from an alerting point of view, right? If you had critical alerts that all of a sudden disappeared because you took an upgrade, you would not be in good shape. And I think that type of awareness, that type of, call it processing, that you guys do at HostiFi, I think really lends itself to why you would pay $50 a month for all this. So
thanks. And I don't mean to be rude too. If we had a real competitor where, most businesses, this is a really niche business, so we honestly don't have any competitors. But if we had a real competitor, I would give them props for, oh, here's how we differentiate. But really, with our competition, they're just biting at our heels, and they're not really competitors. Just to be honest with you guys. But take a look, investigate. Don't take my word for it, of course. Look into their social media accounts and look into ours and everything, and see what you see, and see who's recommending us, who's recommending them. These other companies, they're trying to make a quick buck, but they're not out there talking about updates and updating servers and all that stuff. So you can really see, we're dealing with a lot of customers here, we're doing a lot of updates, and we have a lot of experience with it. And that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, good. Next question, Giancarlo.
So next question is for you, JD. It's from Andrew and other people asking similar questions. So how Domotz does handle the pricing for multi-site UniFi controllers? On HostiFi, you might have one single cloud server hosting one controller for multiple sites. So how does it be handled from a pricing perspective in Domotz?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked that. This will be an opportunity for Riley and I to both speak of our business models. So from a Domotz perspective, okay, Domotz is going to put an agent, right, that is at each site, as we call it. Our site, we can be referenced as a single network. That network can be multiple VLANs, it can be multiple subnets that you're looking at, but there is a single agent that resides on that network. If you go with all the integrations that we have today, you're paying $29 per month for all of the shared alerts and the integrations that we do with the PSA tools and documentation systems that are out there. It can be less if you don't need those types of integrations. With respect to UniFi and Ubiquiti, ultimately you're paying on a per site. When we are associating that agent with the HostiFi service, right, there's really no change in cost. Okay, all we're doing is making sure that we're looking at the server that you care about or validate with this particular agent, and we're looking at those devices, and we're just charging you on that, you know, that standard fee. Again, whether it's $29 or you're paying $19 per month, that is what it is for Domotz. Okay, each site that you deploy is a multiple of that amount that you're paying. That's the way Domotz prices our business model. You know, Riley, let me make a comment and then you clarify here. Okay, Riley is really charging you on a like a server basis, right? For hosting your account, you can have multiple customers associated with that $49 per month. Really, he's looking at how many UniFi devices are being monitored and managed under that. So that is independent of how we do it. It's slightly different, but fundamentally, what I think you'll see is that the costs of our service for what you get out of it are still really cheap, right? For the value that comes from it. Riley, did you want to clarify anything there?
Nope. Yeah, exactly what you said. You can have unlimited sites on HostiFi, but you're limited by the number of devices connected. And with Domotz, you're paying for each site. So yeah.
Well, that was a simple way to say what I said. Perfect.
Just a recap.
Yeah, Giancarlo, what else do we have?
Very, very good. So there is a question. It's both. It's a combination between Domotz and HostiFi. The question is probably for me. It's from Stuart, and it's asking, so Domotz, does it talk directly to HostiFi or it talks directly to UniFi key on site? I mean, I probably he refers to the UniFi or Ubiquiti devices on local in the network. So from a Domotz point of view, Domotz talks to both. So Domotz is a scanner, is a tool for building a powerful asset management. So it scans the network, it collects all the information available on the IP network. Therefore, it talks to every Ubiquiti IP-based device on site. But with the integration with UniFi controller, you are able to indicate a HostiFi site, which the one that both JB and Rayleigh showed you before, where you specify hostify.net and the URL basically. We talk to the HostiFi Ubiquiti controller, in that case, UniFi controller in the HostiFi cloud, and we collect additional information out of that. So we collect information about which access points are on site and which clients are managed through those access points. We do collect information about port mapping and traffic on Ethernet switches and more. We collect information. We are going to collect more information about from the gateway as well and other UniFi controller devices. But from that point of view, we also provide a quick access to the HostiFi platform itself. So from Domotz, you can jump directly to HostiFi. I don't know if JB or Rayleigh showed that part as well.
We just showed, Giancarlo, with respect to that, we just showed how it's done. You know, my comment that I gave at the very beginning and the slides that I showed is help.domotz.com, and you search for Ubiquiti UniFi, and you're going to see exactly how to connect to these external services. So you're exactly right, though, Giancarlo. I mean, the answer to his question specifically is both, right? We take advantage of UniFi and leveraging APIs that are out there to get a lot of the data that we present, but you can also look at a local network perspective and use SNMP and some of the TCP services monitoring that we do to make sure that the system is indeed online and working as expected, and you don't necessarily just have a let's call it a Ubiquiti device to cloud issue. So lots of things that we do for you. Good.
Very good, very good. So I have actually I have two comments that are not questions and worth to mention anyway. So one is from Richard, one is from Francisco. They mentioned about HostiFi, and they are probably providing an answer to the question why HostiFi, which are the key advantages of the HostiFi. And basically, they both mentioned HostiFi is just the best, no question. It's just awesome service. But that's good to go to the next question. So how there is a question for HostiFi if they are planning to have a yearly pricing, I believe, for 50 or lower devices. Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not going to have any cheaper pricing. Our value that we're providing is only going up as we build our team and hire more employees. Our pricing is going to continue to increase, but the prices you see today will be the lowest they'll ever be for sure.
Okay, very good, very good. I have another question from Matthew. This is for you, JB.
Okay.
It's about the hardware that we use and the versus software that we use for the Domotz agent. So he's asking, Matthew is asking if the Domotz agent only is a hardware-based agent or if there is also a software-based that it can be loaded on existing.
Yeah, that's a great question. And for those that are not familiar with Domotz that are on this, I mentioned at the beginning, there's of course the cloud, which is where all of our intelligence is, but then there is this agent. When you look at the Domotz knock screen, all those dots that are out there is the agent. That agent fundamentally is actually a software agent. It can be hosted on a Windows machine. It can be hosted on a Linux machine. It can be hosted in a NAS drive. In fact, it can be hosted in an embedded system, even something as small as a Raspberry Pi. So Domotz makes that software available to you. So you can put it on those servers. Now, if you want something quick, easy to deploy, you can go on Amazon.com, you can go to one of our partners, and you can buy a little hardware agent. That hardware agent is fundamentally our software running on Ubuntu Core. The nice thing about that box, it's $99, it's super cheap on Amazon, and because we own the Ubuntu Core OS that's in there in the platform, we can make real-time updates and push updates to it. We also can allow you to more easily associate the network interface card that's in there with the different VLANs. We do that all inside of our UI. So there's some advantages to that, but we're certainly not limiting you to that hardware. You can go take that Windows agent, you can take that Linux agent. In fact, in some of the slides I showed, I think we were hosting that on some Linux servers that we were using. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Nice, yeah. I've got mine installed on a Debian VM at home, so that's pretty cool. Works really well. It's easy to set up.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. There are a few. I mean, there are a few pros and cons in both using the hardware versus the software. There are some questions also about the benefit or cons in using the Domotz hardware. There is a Domotz, worth to mention, there is a community forum for Domotz where this question has been answered with a lot of details, and compared with using the Raspberry Pi versus a Debian machine, Ubuntu or a Windows machine, whatever. I mean, as you know, we support tens or hundreds of different architecture for Domotz. Okay, I probably will have time for the last question from Nicholas. It just came like a few minutes ago. So he's asking if do I need a UniFi? This is more for Rayleigh. Do I need a UniFi controller to use HostiFi services?
No, so our service is a replacement for any UniFi controllers that you have existing or cloud keys. You would get rid of all those, just use the one HostiFi server, and it's really easy to migrate. Then he can help you with showing you the migration instructions, but there's a migration wizard built into every UniFi installation. So there's really just a 3-step process to move your configuration and devices from whatever you currently have all into the one HostiFi server. And our support team can help you with that too.
That's very good to hear, really, because there was another question. It was exactly for the migration process. So you provide also assistance for that.
Yeah, if Vinny's in the chat, he can drop you a link to our guide. We have a video and instructions on the migration steps. And like I said, it's just a 3-step process. It's built into UniFi. And so you just click through where you export your configuration, import it to HostiFi, and then tell your devices to contact the new server. It takes about 2 minutes, and you'll be able to move all your cloud keys and UniFi controllers into the one HostiFi server really easily.
Very good, very good. Yeah, we probably have 1 minute more.
Yeah, 1 minute, Giancarlo.
Okay, last question then, by Josh, and probably other people have asked a similar question. So he's asking if HostiFi leverage cloud hosting with Domotz monitoring, or you are using a UniFi server controller with Domotz monitoring of all the server. So I probably try to understand better this question as HostiFi offer their own cloud solution. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rayleigh, but you have That's what you offer, right?
Yeah, so we'll be providing you a server that's it's running on Vultr as our cloud provider, and so you have a VPS that runs the UniFi controller. We manage that Linux and UniFi controller software for you and provide support. Domotes, you wouldn't be running on the UniFi controller. It would be an agent running on your network. I think that's what he was asking, is where the Domotes piece fits into it. So you would download, like we were talking about earlier, you would install Domotes or buy the hardware Domotes and plug it into your network, and that can run on Windows, Linux, or whatever, and then that would monitor your network. And also you would be able to integrate that to get more information out of the HostiFi controller.
Perfect. Hey, we are at our 1 hour mark. Giancarlo, I want to thank you for preparing all those questions that people were sending in. I know we had a lot. I know that the team was in the background answering a lot of those questions. Hopefully we'll get emails out to you if we didn't get to your questions. I do want to invite you to email support@hostify.com. You also can email support@domotes.com or sales@domotes.com. Happy to answer any questions if you need more details. Also connect with Riley, connect with myself on LinkedIn, connect with us on any of the social platforms. We look forward to talking to you. I appreciate your time. Riley, thank you very much for joining us for this 1 hour webinar today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody have a great evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks.